Greetings everyone. Please be Nanjali. Let's pay our respects to Long Po together. Bow.
Thank you. And thank you. It's a great pleasure to have Longpo Amaro here with us on this series for the Vassa to share with us a bit on his Dhamma reflections. We shall begin the session with Longpo leading us with a short guided meditation. Over to you, please, Longpo.
So good morning to everyone, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be on the planet. So this is just to take a moment to settle in and attune to the present experience. So please, however you are sitting, please just let your eyes gently close. And without trying to do anything, bring attention. Notice how the body feels at this very moment. Not to criticize it or move it or do anything with it, but how does it feel? What's the mood of the mind? Is there anxiety, interest, sleepiness, irritation? Focus. What's here? What's the mood of our mind in this moment? Again, not to change or fix or do anything with it or judge it, but to notice what's here. Bringing attention to the feelings of the body once again. Notice that all this time, the body has been breathing ever since we were born. It's never stopped. In breath, out breath. So without trying to make the breath a thing that I am doing as a special act, let the feelings of the breath settle upon the attention, just as if you had your palm face upwards with a soft feather resting on your fingers. Just let the breath settle on the attention like a soft feather resting on your hand. Gentle, present, noticeable, no special thing. But here it is, the body breathing. In this way, the breath settles upon the attention, rests upon the attention, upon awareness. The breath moves, but the awareness is steady, receptive, supportive, present. Let that stability of awareness be felt. This which is knowing the breath coming and going is restful, stable, reliable. Let the heart rest in that awareness, embody that awareness, receiving the flow of change, sensation of the breath, the sound of my voice. This which knows movement isn't moving. This which knows change isn't changing. Spacious, peaceful, present. So I just rang my bell, but there's some kind of sound filtering system that means you can't hear it. It's another interesting reflection upon the perceiving process. The sound is there, but it's not there. Heard, but not heard. So we can close the meditation at this point and carry on with the rest of our session together.
Thank you, Luang Por. We would now like to request for the Dhamma. The Brahma God Sahampati, Lord of the world, with palms joined in reverence, requested a favor. Beings are here with but little dust in their eyes. Pray, teach the Dhamma out of compassion for them. Brahma Chaloka Dipati Sahampati Katanjaliyan Diwarangaya Chata Santi Tasatha Parajaka Jatika Desetu Dhammang Anukampi Mampaja.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Very glad to be gathered together with this this group once again, and I appreciate that it's a very widespread of time zones that the various members of this group, participants today in this Dhamma reflection, from California, which is about 2 or 3 in the morning, to Sydney in Australia, which is probably 6 or 7 in the evening. Welcome to you all. Good early morning, mid-morning, afternoon, good evening, good night, wherever you happen to be. I appreciate your intention and effort in gathering together to use this time on a Saturday to reflect upon the teachings. So Sister Bita requested me to speak on the theme of adhitthana, and this is the Pali word meaning resolution or determination. and it's one of the 10 paramitas that we have in the Pali tradition, Adhitthana. And so I felt this was a good subject to say bring attention to, particularly because like many things in our lives, it's very helpful if we get it right, but it can be quite obstructive if we get it wrong. So as is often the case, the benefit or obstructiveness of any quality in our life hinges around the attitude that we have towards it. It's not just whether a tool is useful or expensive or say effective, but it's how we use it. That's the key piece. If you pick up a knife by the blade rather than by the handle, you're going to cut yourself. So Adhitthana is another of these qualities that we need to cultivate a skillful attitude to the use of it for it to really bring the most benefit to us. One of the things that I thought I'd share with you is a very interesting sutta, almost unique in the Pali Canon as far as I'm aware. It's called the Greater Discourse on the Gosinga Forest, the Mahagosinga Sutta. It's Sutta number 32 in the middle-length discourses, the Majjhima Nikaya. And it's a kind of unique scenario, and it starts off with a couple of the great enlightened elders, Mahamoggallana and Mahakassapa, coming together. Many of the great elders are staying together in this Gosinga Sala tree forest, and Mahamoggallana and Mahakassapa come together and they say, well, let's go and see Venerable Sariputra and see and pay a call on him and have some Dhamma discussion, because it's a beautiful moonlit night. The moon is illuminating the forest, and the sala trees are all blossoming, so the air is filled with lovely fragrances, and the moonlight is filling the forest and silvering the leaves and making a very beautiful, inspiring, heavenly atmosphere. So then the beginning of the sutta describes then Mahakassapa Mahamoggallana going through the forest, and then meeting up with Venerable Anuruddha and Venerable Revata, and then they meet up with Ananda, and then the main dialogue of the sutta is between the Venerable Revata and Ananda and Venerable Sariputta. And so when they get to Venerable Sariputta, Ananda says, Venerable Sariputta, the Gosinga solitary forest is filled with this beautiful moonlight. The air is laden with these fragrances. The sala trees are all blossoming. It's as if it's a heavenly night here in the forest. What kind of monk do you think would illuminate the grove on a night like this? So actually, sorry, it's Sariputta asks Venerable Ananda. And then Ananda responds, well, I would say, one who has learned much and who has retained much and has mastered the teachings. And so that's Ananda kind of describes his own speciality. And as it goes through the different elders, each one, as the conversation goes round, each one who's asked kind of describes their own sort of great strength or their great interest or a very significant capacity, or what's most important to them. So Venerable Ananda describes being very learned, mastering the teachings, being able to recall the teachings. Venerable Revata, he describes one who is who does a lot of solitary meditation. Then Venerable Anuruddha says, or one who has developed the divine eye, who can see into different realms of existence, the different heavenly realms, and kind of explore the different levels of the cosmos with the Dibba Chakku, the divine eye. When Mahamoggallana is asked, interestingly, he doesn't talk about his own psychic powers. He talks about the great value of Dhamma dialogue, kind of coming together with other wise elders and discussing the teaching and exploring the Dhamma in a kind of Socratic dialogue, exploring through discussion the Dhamma teachings. Venerable Sariputta is then asked, and he says, well, I feel that a monk who has complete mastery over the mind, they can enter into any kind of state of absorption that they choose, just as a person can choose what kind of clothes they wear during the day, the morning, the afternoon, the evening. They can put on and take off whatever clothes they like. one who has mastered their mind, and in that way, they can enter any state of absorption, any kind of concentration they choose. And so that again, that's Venerable Sariputta's own speciality, just as the Dibha Chaku, the divine eye, was the speciality of Anuruddha. And when Mahakassapa is asked, he says, one who is a forest dweller, one who practices the ascetic disciplines of the Dhutanga practices of austerity, then that such a one is a monk who would illuminate the grove on a night like this. So each one kind of describes their own speciality, their own special interest, their own particular focus. So then, at the end of all these little dialogues, they say, well, let's go and ask the master and see what he says about what would be the kind of monk that would illuminate the forest on a beautiful moonlit, a fragrant night like this. So they go to the Buddha and pay their respects, and they ask him. And so very uniquely, the way the Buddha responds is to say, the kind of monk that would illuminate the forest on a night like this is one who would sit down and make the resolution, yeah, I will not move from this spot. My bones can turn to dust, my blood can dry up, but I will not move from this spot until full and complete enlightenment has been realized. So when it comes to the Buddha himself, he names as his speciality or his particular focus, adhitthana. And so I don't know any other particular spot in the canon, and if any of you do know any others where it's highlighted in this way, it would be interesting to hear. But it's a kind of unique description of both, not kind of people displaying their pride, they're all arahants, so they're not proud, but what's been particularly significant and meaningful and valuable as a spiritual resource, or what's been, say, most effective in bringing forth good qualities. And it's adhitthana, resolution, determination, that the Buddha himself describes as being of greatest significance. So that I feel that it's very worthy of reflection. Like, wow, because mostly classically the Buddha Gautama was recognized as having a great mastery of wisdom and was a great teacher of wisdom. Maitreya Buddha, Maitreya, his name meaning loving kindness, his speciality to be loving kindness in the future. And but it's resolution, adhitthana, that the Buddha himself highlights and names as the most sort of significant quality within his own individual experience. So when we reflect upon adhitthana, then I would say it's also related to the other paramita, the one of the other 10 parameters of khanti, patient endurance, Khanti, khanti, and so that having a resolution is to do with goal directedness. You're putting your attention onto, yes, this is the direction that is skillful to head. Let's go in that direction, and I won't let things obstruct or get in the way or cause the mind to waver. So along the way, difficulties and obstructions need a lot of patient endurance, a lot of khanti paramita, in order to deal with the things that are, let's say, throwing one off track or getting in the way. Progress on a straight road in a good vehicle or getting onto an efficient train, progress is very easy, straightforward, and kind of uncomplicated. But when we have a goal, when we have a direction of, say, full enlightenment, liberation, then sometimes things will be easy and straightforward, but a lot of the time they won't be. There'll be a lot of distractions, distortions, obstructions, and so that then patient endurance is a key factor along the way. So I'd say resolution and determination, is a close partner of patient endurance, because you don't have to endure things going easy. You don't have to be resolved on getting to your destination on the train if the train's already going there. It's kind of so when things are easy and fluid and supported, then we don't need resolution and endurance. We don't need patience. It's all kind of running easily. We need patience and resolution when there are things that are kind of causing obstruction or confusion or distraction, kind of throwing us off track. So also with respect to patience, I feel in the more worldly sphere, in our ordinary everyday lives, this is closely related to commitment. So commitment to a relationship, commitment to the promises that you've made, commitment to the duties that you have within the family, within the workplace, within society. So that quality of commitment and say being true to your word, another way of phrasing it. Even though words like adhitthana or khanti, they're very scripturally based words, commitment, promises, these are more familiar, more say regular, make a more say regular appearance in our lives. But I'd say these are all very, very closely related, and I would say these can be, I would suggest, within the 95 people gathered in this Dhamma sharing today, that we would all say, yeah, commitment's a good thing. Keeping your promises is a good thing. Being true to your word is a good thing. Not wavering, not being distracted, not being unfaithful, not being deceitful or irresolute. You know, those are not helpful generally in our lives. I think that's would be a common and natural understanding. So I feel that there is that in place, and so that again we can have some questions at the end. But I would suggest that's a within the realm of a common agreement within human the manusaloka in the human realm. But one of the things about the wisdom teachings of the Buddha that sometimes comes across is that in terms of wisdom teachings, it can often be spoken of that any kind of goal or any sort of directionality in the practice is somehow misplaced. You get books with a name like Journey Without a Goal, or Krishnamurti's famous phrase, truth is a pathless land, like no path, no goal, and these kind of expressions. And because of the way that the mind can take hold of a goal, can take hold of directionality, and can take hold of the practice of making effort and turn them into something stressful. I've got to get there. I need to do this. I should do this. It's expected of me. The family demands. I've got to. I should do. I ought to. So even those words are probably making you tense up in the belly as you hear the words. You should to, got to, ought to. The family expects. I would say again a natural tensing in the system. But I would say, and I say this in almost every Dhamma talk, if it was the case that every kind of directionality and every kind of effort was intrinsically stressful, any kind of goal was intrinsically stressful or dukkha, or was anathema, was contrary to Dhamma, then how could samma sankappo, right resolution, or adhitthana, how could adhitthana be a paramita? How could samma sankappo be a factor of the Eightfold Path? How could samma vayama, right effort, be a factor of the Eightfold Path? They're factors of the Eightfold Path. They're peaceful and they lead to peace. They're unstressful and they lead to freedom from stress. So if it was the case that every kind of directionality, every kind of goal, or every kind of effort, any kind of following a path was contrary to Dhamma, then the Buddha would never have spoken about path, the fourth noble truth, Magga. It couldn't be there. And those factors of right resolution, the directionality, setting a direction, right effort, following up on that direction in order to actualize that goal, to arrive at that, for that goal to be realized, that couldn't be there in the path. So I really, over and over and over again, and many of you have heard me say this dozens of times, maybe hundreds, so the sake of repeating myself ad nauseam, really take this to heart, that there has to be a way that we can be determined, we can have a goal, we can make effort, we can be resolute on a direction, and that's not stressful, not burdensome. We can fulfill our duties without the duties being a chore or being a hassle, being a kind of resented obligation. I offer this for reflection. So I'll talk about this more in a little bit, but I feel that's very, very significant to bear in mind. In the forest tradition practice, these kind of qualities, adhitthana and khanti, patient endurance and resolution, these are really very, very central features of our spiritual training. The great teacher of our community, Luang Por Chah, established this group of monasteries and established this teaching style. And in the forest tradition generally in Thailand, I would say it's the case. But when Luang Por Chah was often faced with different questions, like, you know, Luang Por Chah, my mind is all over the place. No matter how much I try to concentrate, my mind is distracted. He would often respond by saying, you know, "Oton Daimai, can you endure it?" Or, "Oh, I've got terrible troubles in my family. Yeah, my husband is really, really ill. My children are all rebellious and difficult. I don't know how to work with this." Luang Por would say, "Oton Daibo, yeah. Can you endure it? Is it endurable?" Oton is the Thai word for endurance, or can being patient with, or can you be resolute in the midst of this? So that and not just with lay people, also with monastics, it will be the same kind of thing. That patient endurance, kwam or ton in Thai language, is of absolutely central significance. So that in that respect, it is helpful to understand that with regard to patience, it's to do with having a goal. It's to do with say setting a direction, and then being content and being at ease with what happens along the way, the things that are obstructive or painful or challenging. But when we use the word patience in English, it often implies sort of gritting your teeth and waiting for this uncomfortable, painful thing to be over. And when it's over, then that will be good. So that's based on self, based on time, and it's not really what the word khanti, patience as a paramita, is referring to. Rather, khanti paramita is a letting go of time. It's not a state of waiting. So the baramis are a means of transcending, a means of crossing over. So in Buddhist practice, Buddhist psychology, patience is not waiting for something to be over. So patience is not about waiting for Ajahn Amaro to come back to the screen. It's not a state of waiting. It's a letting go of time. So another of the things that Luang Por Chah said in this respect is a spiritual practitioner, a samana, a nakpatibat, a practitioner has no future. So to our ego, to self-view, like no future is really depressing. It's a kind of nihilistic negative attitude. But in terms of Dhamma, when self and time are let go of, then it helps the mind to be fully attentive to this present reality. So I feel that one of the aspects of this is also that, and related to right effort, is what we call the four iddhipada, the four bases of success. So again, success means there is a goal. There is a goal that is recognized as being valuable. Effort is being made for that goal to be actualized, to be realized, to be brought into being. So, you know, the Buddha taught in order to help beings to be liberated. He had, when he was giving a Dhamma teaching, he had a goal. He wasn't stressed about it, but he was had the intention to explain the teachings as they were understood, to help them to be understood, and to catalyze the transformation of the hearts of those who are listening. So there's work's being done, there's a goal there, effort is being made, there's interest to help others, there's the effort to help others, there's the thinking about how others can be helped, and then the fourth of the four iddhipadas, so there's chanda, interest, virya, energy or effort, citta, thinking about how you want to do it, and then vimamsa, the fourth one, is, okay, did it work? How many of those listening understood what was being said? How many, to what degree have hearts been transformed? So again, with this sense of having a goal, making effort towards that goal, is not anathema, it's not contrary to Dhamma, but rather it's a crucial part of Dhamma practice. But as I've been saying, the key, one of the key pieces about these areas is how the attitude towards them, how they are handled. So, like with patients, if it's to do with me waiting for something to happen in the future, then it's built up around self and time. So there has to be a way that directionality can be given, effort can be made, and a goal can be realized that is stress-free, that is not bound up with self and not bound up with time, and that can sound a little bit mysterious or hard to understand. But I would say this is a really a key issue. If we can get a feeling for how that works, then it's a extraordinary benefit to our interest in finding happiness, freedom, and fulfillment in our lives. So essentially, those of you who have been listening to recordings of some of the Sunday afternoon talks here at Amaravati, I did a talk, I think, about a few weeks ago about holding on and the difference between holding and clinging, and that I feel is an essential way, an essential element, and a very skillful way of describing this. So BuddhaDhamma is not about never picking things up or kind of say non-engagement with the world. It's about skillful engagement with the world. So Luang Por Chah would say, say when we talk about relating to the world, we might say, pick something up. These are my glasses. I'm holding my glasses. If I cling to them, I might break them. And if I hold them in my hand the whole time, I don't really need to. And if I hold on to them in a state of tension, then it does cause stress and agitation in the system. But if I just pick up my glasses and put them on, you're letting them be where they need to be. Then when you need to take them off, you take them off. You put them down. So this is how Luang Por Chah would describe as the most skillful attitude is we hold, but we don't cling. We pick things up when we need to use them. When we finished using them, then we put them down. That relates to tools like glasses or like tools. It relates to our body. It relates to our relationships. It relates to our life in the workplace, and picking things up, using them skillfully, and putting them down when we no longer need them. So that I feel is a key piece in this. If we can learn how to hold rather than to cling, then we don't need to be afraid of engaging in the workplace, following our duties, having goals in life. Is to do with that, picking up skillfully and then putting down when we need to, rather than identifying with the work that we do, the relationships that we have, the efforts that we make in meditation. It is that contrast between holding and clinging that makes all the difference. So maybe an example of this is what we call the Dhutanga practices, like I was saying about Venerable Mahakassapa. So he was famous for being the kind of most austere, or the most say dedicated towards using the austere practices, the Dhutangas, the forest dwelling practices, and that was what the characteristic he labeled in the Gosinga Sala forest that evening. So this is also very much part of our life in the forest tradition, the Dhutanga practices, and that that say forms the theme of the way of life in our tradition. And so when I was a younger bhikkhu then, and is still the case today in most of our monasteries around the world, particularly during the rains retreat this time of the year, different Sangha members would take on different Dhutanga practices. There's 13 of these that are labeled by the Buddha as being allowable. So he didn't permit people just to say live on 3 rice grains a day for as a sort of lifelong adhitthana, or to hold your arm up in the air and vow not to take it down for 40 years or something. Those kind of practices, self-mortification was forbidden. But the kind of practices he did allow, the 13, include things like just eating one meal a day, eating your food out of one bowl, not accepting food other than the food that's given on the alms round through the village, only having 3 robes to wear, not living in a building, staying under the shelter of trees, not lying down to sleep, to only using 3 postures instead of 4. These kind of, I won't bore you with the whole list, but these are the kind of Dhutanga practices. So often at the beginning of the rains retreat, maybe some of you heard me talking about that in that previous Dhamma talk, then you would, and particularly if you're a junior, you would request permission from the teacher, the Ajahn. I'd like to take on the practice of just eating the alms food given in the village and not the food cooked in the monastery. I'd like to take on the practice of just having 3 robes, and then I'd like to practice not lying down to sleep at night, or those kind of things, or just being having all my food at one session and not accepting anything that that is outside that one session in the day. So you ask permission usually, and so when I was a younger bhikkhu, I took on quite a few of these, and was very ardent, very committed, determined. There was a lot of what I thought was adhitthana and sama sankalpa, right resolution. But I did things like I was very strict in terms of having just the 1 meal a day at certain times. All my food, even now at the meal time at Amaravati, I don't take any kind of extra side dishes. Everything goes. If it doesn't go in my bowl, I don't take it as a general rule. I have got quite a small bowl now as well. So that those kind of principles we take to heart. But I was really I had a lot of these going on, so I was also an extremely strict vegetarian, and I didn't lie down to sleep for about 3.5 years. I kept what's called the sitters practice. So I had a lot of these different things going on. But even though the word Dhutanga translates as a means of shaking off or a means of letting go, what was actually happening, I thought just discovered by kind of eventually, noticing the effect, finally applying the vimamsa, the kind of reviewing, having made all those efforts and taken on all these practices, these austerities, I felt I was really stuffed, like a kind of an overstuffed goose, a kind of swelling up, kind of bursting at the seams, all these things I was doing, so that these practices that were supposed to be a support for letting go and non-attachment, there were things that I was doing and I was very identified with. Like, I don't lie down to sleep at night. I only take the 1 meal a day. I have all the food in my bowl. I. So it was finally took the kind of the recognition of that overstuffed feeling when I went to Lumpur Sameto. It was, I think, at the end of 1986, but just before the winter retreat at the beginning of 87. And I said to Lumpur, I said, Lumpur, I've decided to give up all of my ascetic practices. And many of you might have heard me talk about this before. And I thought he was going to say, oh, well, you've been doing a good, well done, lad. You've been doing a good job. I've been impressed by the degree of effort and focus you've had in this. But if you need to put all those aside, then okay, you're probably a bit exhausted. But well done, lad. Well done anyway. And it was completely the opposite. What he said was, at last. So I was kind of surprised at that, and he was waiting for me to see that doing more stuff is not intrinsically related to letting go. And I was realizing that even though they are a means of shaking off, it was turning into an accumulation of my practice, my things, my asceticism was all this stuff I was doing. It was actually an accumulation rather than a relinquishing. So that was a wake-up call. Oh, how many years have I been getting this wrong? About 8. Oops. So I can be very, very slow on the uptake sometimes, but I felt that was a very good example of how when we have a commitment, we have resolution, we have a sense of a direction that when it's not handled skillfully, it can leave us feeling you're burdened. You know, I said I felt overstuffed. You know, like your commitments to your duties in the workplace, in your family, in your meditation practice. Oh, I've got to sit down. I've got to meditate. This kind of terrible chore that I've got to do because I should, I ought to, I must. And we don't notice the amount of I that's in there. So I'm not discouraging us from practicing meditation or fulfilling our duties in the family or the workplace and in society. Far from it. But what I feel is useful to reflect on in this respect is the degree to which the desire to become and the desire to get rid of, BuddhaDhamma, Vibhavatanha, they're kind of sneaking into the picture. They're infiltrating, like the COVID, like viruses, like COVID virus or a computer virus, a Trojan, gets into your system and corrupts the system, confuses and distorts the system without us realizing. So the key piece when it's with respect to adhitthana, resolution, and determination, the key to practicing patience is letting go of self-view, letting go of time, not letting those efforts or those intentions, those goals be based around I and me and mine, based around self, based around time, based around location and identification. And that's where insight meditation practice and the development of vipassana is really key in this respect. It helps to bring the attention very directly to those habits of the desire to become, me getting somewhere in my practice, me not getting anywhere in my practice, me having to I'll do this to get rid of my defilements. I'll practice patience so I will get free of this problem in the future. Me doing something now in order to become enlightened in the future is an unhelpful paradigm. So rather, and Luang Por Sumedho will emphasize this over and over again. It's not me doing something now to become enlightened in the future, but being awake now. It's not I have got a lot of problems, and if when I get rid of my problems and I realize enlightenment, then there'll be me free of my problems, is an unhelpful paradigm. It's like to let go of the me who is the supposed owner of the supposed problems. There's an obstruction, an unskillful thought, a feeling, an attitude arises in the mind. Yes, it's there, but it's just a set of perceptions. It isn't a self, doesn't belong to a self. There is no owner. There can be no owner. A defilement, anger, fear, jealousy, laziness, it might be present, but it's a pattern of feeling and perception arising as a natural attribute of the experiential field. That's all. It's not a person, doesn't belong to a person. So when there's a letting go or using insight meditation to recognize those habits of self-creation, bhavatanha, vibhavatanha, the desire to become, the desire to get rid of, and instead of the practice being based around self-view and time, and it's instead what we call practicing Dhamma in accordance with Dhamma, Dhammanu Dhamma Patipada, then directionality can be given. There can be samma sankappo, right resolution. There can be right effort, samma vayamo. There's adhitthana, there's resolution, there's determination. Yes, let this practice be followed. Let this work be done. Let this effort be made. But it's not infiltrated with the presence of self-view and conceit. It's coming and it's guided by and energized by mindfulness and wisdom, satipanya, by awakened awareness, as Luang Por Sumedho very, very often puts it. Maybe the last thing to say, before we sort of have time for some questions, is I think it's also very interesting that within the mythology and the cosmology of the Buddhist tradition, we speak about the Bodhisattva, the being who has made the resolution, the adhitthana, to realize enlightenment in the future. And yeah, those the books I was just giving to our friend who helped to edit them was a newly published book. It's not on the website yet. It's only just come from the printers a couple of days ago. It's called The Enlightened Nuns from the Time of the Buddha. And over and over again in those stories of the enlightened nuns, it talks about in previous lifetimes a nun meeting the Buddha, that Buddha of that era in past ages past, and then being inspired by a nun who was very wise teacher, or a nun who had great psychic power, or a nun who was most profoundly dedicated to formal meditation, and say, oh, in a future life, I want to be a nun of that nature. I want to be the one with great psychic power. I want to be a nun, disciple of the Buddha who has great wisdom, is a great teacher. So setting that intention in place, and the primary example being the Bodhisattva, the Buddha Gautama, at the feet of the Buddha Dipankara for incalculable periods and 100,000 eons ago, saying, in the future, I wish to dedicate myself to being a Buddha in the future time. So what we call the Bodhisattva ideal, or the Bodhisattva ideal, is a prime example of adhitthana. And I would say that one of the key pieces of that, again, I can't speak from direct experience, but my understanding of how that works is that it's a resolution not based on self-view. It's not basically, I want to become the champion. I want to become a Buddha to be a sort of champion human being. I want to be the best in the world, so that I will be regarded as the best. It's a profound, extraordinarily powerful resolution. Life to dedicate the heart to lifetime after lifetime after lifetime to developing the paramitas until Buddhahood is realized. That's an extraordinarily powerful and encompassing resolution. But for that to be actualized, it also needs to be free of self-view. It's not about me and mine, but rather coming from mindfulness and wisdom. It's the profound intention and resolution, determination to bring this human potential, the potential of a living being, to its absolute fulfillment, to the most complete consummation of potential that a living being can arrive at. Not for me, not because I want to be the best, but rather this is the very best that can be done with the experience of a living being. Let that be actualized as fully and completely as possible. And so that I feel is something that is helpful to understand and to consider. It's that as long as resolution, determination is developed, then it will be something that's extraordinarily helpful and skillful and beneficial, but only if it is free of self-view and free of conceit. If it's bound up in me being determined, me having a commitment, I've got to keep my promise, I've got an obligation, I have a duty, the more wrapped up that is with self-view, the more that suffering is inevitably going to be part of the picture. So let us use this quality of adhitthana, this parami, let it be developed as completely free of self-view and conceit as possible. But offer these thoughts for consideration today.
หันธรรมยามโอวารกถาสาธุกรังกตามาสิสาธุสาธุสาธุอนุโมทามิ
Thank you so much, Longpo, for very beautiful reflections on adhitthana. So we've got some time for questions. I request for people who are asking questions, if you can keep your question concise and to the point, so that we can take as many as possible before we let Longpo go. He's got an engagement to go to, so we shall begin our Q&A session now. Can I ask Belle? Belle Haywood, could you ask your question, Belle? You're gone? Okay, she's gone. Xia Lei? Xia Lei?
You are muted, Belle.
Belle, are you back?
Belle, you are muted. Please
Okay,
unmute
one
yourself.
second. Unmute yourself, Belle.
Unmute.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
the host did not allow. Oh, hi. Sorry. I'm so sorry, Longpo. I had trouble unmuting myself. I'm so glad for this opportunity to be here and ask you a question. Thank you, and for your Dharma talk. At the beginning of your Dharma talk, you spoke about how we all see commitment as a positive thing, and keeping our word and keeping our promises and these kind of attributes and qualities, which I really try to live up to myself, and it's a value that's important to me, and I try to do that. What is your advice when, for example, we have been in close relationship with somebody, but that hasn't been a high priority quality to them, like keeping their word, keeping their promises, that kind of thing. And it's something that has caused disappointment and hurt. And then I have this terrible tendency of kind of wanting to point it out and make them see the errors of their way, kind of thing. What is your advice with this? Thank you.
Well, I would say that the short answer is mindfulness. Because if you've got a plan of what you want to say, if you rehearse, okay, I need to tell this person, whether it's a family partner or your someone in the workplace, or someone that you're close to in your Dhamma group or whatever, wherever it is. If you've got a plan, if you've rehearsed, okay, when I next see this person, then I'm going to say to her or him X, Y, Z. As soon as you've got something planned and scripted, it's going to be off balance. And so rather than scripting, or when I next see that person, and this is from personal experience, where next time I see her, when I see Belle, I'm going to say this because this is what she needs to hear. Then when I meet you, I don't meet you. I've got I'm focusing on my script. I don't see where you're at. I'm not attuning to the moment and what's going to be helpful. I'm just kind of projecting my output onto my image of you rather than having a real communication. And so just over and over and over again, when I have scripted things and sort of been sort of prepared, well, when I next see that person, I'm going to say this. It's always out of tune. I would say virtually every single time, and wow, it doesn't work. So what does work is to have that. I know that I have a feeling that this needs to be communicated when we're next in touch, face to face or over the phone or in a conversation, communication. Let's see how things work out. So that there's an interest or a feeling to communicate, but the primary thing is the attunement to the time, the place, the situation. So it's a real communication, not a proclamation, because for a communication to happen, there has to be a transmitter and a receiver. And if you're just sort of expressing your pre-thought, pre-digested perception or idea onto your imagined your kind of image of that person, then there isn't really a connection. There isn't really, it's not going to be received in a skillful way, or in an effective way. So I would say that's the most helpful thing to recognize. Also, that looking at the results, when you do try to set somebody straight, when it's coming from that, what are the results of that? And that's the vimamsa. Okay, having vented my spleen, or having said, what you really need to know is ABC, then looking at the result of that, and if the result is like greater alienation and resistance. But okay, take note, let the vimamsa be digested. Like, okay, that didn't work. That was not, my words were not received in the way I hoped for. Okay, duly noted. And that that's helps us to then be encouraged towards more genuine communication.
Thank you very much, Longpo.
Thank you, Longpo. Could we please invite Vandana from California? Please unmute yourself.
Thank you, Ajahn. It's very nice to see you for the very first time.
Must be very early in the morning there, Vandana.
Yes, Ajahn, it's 2 a.m. right now. Yeah, but I'm very, very happy. Yesterday I accidentally logged in. I thought it was a Friday, but then I realized, oh no, it's a Saturday early morning. So that's okay. Yeah, so my question is, I've been listening to, I listened to your talk. I will be very honest that I keep going back and forth with different Ajahns, listening to them. So I just heard you said about picking things up skillfully and then put them down. So I wanted to understand that when you're in certain situations, when you know that something might not be, but you don't want to be in that situation, but you are there. So how would you skillfully just stay in that and not bring your own preconceived notions? And because so many times, because when in your certain situations, you already have, as you mentioned, that you're bringing your ideas and your scripts, but somehow it just comes because you are already expecting in your heart that it will happen. So how do you just stay in that present moment with complete awareness and skillfully, that you're not just going to blur out something which is not very skillful? I just did it yesterday.
So these things happen. Well, it's similarly to what I was just saying to Belle, but more internally. One of the things I find, and Lumpur Sumedho's teachings have been extraordinarily helpful on that. So that, like, just what you're describing, that that sense of, I'm in this situation, and I'm really uncomfortable about it, and I just blurted out something in a reaction. I wish I hadn't done that, or I wonder how can I get out of this. So in the moment that those feelings arise, just to step, rather than trying to get away from that situation and get to me getting to a different place on the other side of it, say to step back and say, well, this is the oh dear, I just blurted something out I didn't really want to say feeling. That's what this is in this moment. Or that I'm really stuck in this situation and I can't find a comfortable, a viable way out of it. That's what this is, the I'm stuck in this difficult situation. I can't find a way out of it feeling. That's what this is in this moment. So no solutions, no descript, no explanations. Just in this moment, there is this, oh my goodness, well, what do I do with this one? How can I get out of this feeling? That's what's here. Now, I was applying this myself yesterday. That's like, there's some difficult situation in the community that has got my name on it, and that it's like, oh my goodness, what do I do about this one feeling? And then what is experienced in that moment, there's a little bit of extra space around that. Oh, that I haven't solved it, but it's in a way of taking the I and the I-ness and the itness out of it. It's like, there is this in this moment. And when it's not suppressing it, it's not dismissing it, it's not wallowing in it, but it's like, okay, here's the experience of, oh my goodness, what do I do about this one feeling? And then, all right, it is. And then in that moment, the jitta realizes, oh, this is a feeling that has arisen. It's like this. It can't be more than that. Oh, there's still the practicalities of the living world to work out, but with that little bit of extra space around it, then the intuitive wisdom and your sort of natural mindfulness awareness can function more freely in a less biased way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I see it's just after 10 here, so I have to be gone by 10 past. So if you
Yes,
just have,
so maybe one more question. Okay, can we have Xia Lei?
Okay.
Aya?
Ajahn, I have a question relating to the practice that you taught while in Singapore, like dying well, living well, dying well. So I have a difficulty of like creating that moment, like the urgency when you're going to die. Like you have to be able to let go of everything within 3 to 4 seconds. That what you say, right? I have a difficulty of practicing it because after meditation, I was kind of like quite peaceful. So it kind of like difficult to bring up all those feelings of fear. So I can only practice this when I'm traveling because I have fear of flying. So if there's like turbulence, then okay, at this moment, can I let go in 3, 4 seconds? I can't. I cannot. I can only like calm myself down after like 10 minutes or so. And then I thought, oh, 10 minutes, I'll be gone if like I'm dying. Like it's not that fast. So please kindly, can you like give some tips or advice on how to do it? Thank you, Ajahn.
well, it's almost the same advice again. Because I use this practice on a daily basis, so that because it's not that by having that reflection, then there will be the actualization of letting go of everything. But just like to bring up the thought, I've only got till the end of this next out breath. That's all there is. Everything else is extra. It doesn't mean that everything will be let go of, but it raises the suggestion. It clarifies the array of things that are still being hung on to at that moment, and that the kind of I'm trying not to look at myself in the so in that moment, it's like that they, at least if I say, oh, there's only 3 more seconds left to live, then if there's a whole buzz of feeling and conceptualization going on, then at that moment there's a recognition of, oh, look at all this stuff that's still going on. There is this stuff. So in that moment, again, rather than buying into it and believing it, there is a recognition, oh, there is this agitated feeling, there is this buzz of thought that's going on. So just that reflection kind of accentuates what is still being hung on to. So rather than identifying, being absorbed in that hanging on and believing in it, they, oh, look at all this stuff that I'm believing. And in that moment, there is that which knows this is stuff that's being believed in. Ordinarily, we're just in the belief. We're kind of lost in it. We are it, and that. But at least in that moment, it's reckoned, oh, this is a thing that's being hung on to. This is a thing that has arisen. It's a thing that will come to an end. So again, that degree of reflection, you look at all this stuff that's still going on, so that to be aware that you're clinging, and to carry on clinging, that's as Luang Por Chah said, I find one of his most powerful and beneficial teachings is 50 to 70% of the practice is knowing that you should let go and not being able to. That's a very, and it's not making excuses. It's not like, okay, I can hang on. That gives me, Luang Por Chah is giving me permission to hang on to 70% of my attachments. Like, nope, wrong understanding. What it means is that that's mostly, we recognize, wow, look at that habit, look at that addiction. That's a strong one. But the mind that says, wow, look at that, is not attached, it's not identified in that moment. It knows this is a thing. So to really take that to heart, 50 to 70% of the practice is knowing that you should let go and not being able to. It's like, yeah, it's like recognizing I'm addicted to the news, I'm addicted to sugar, I'm addicted to caffeine, I'm addicted to nicotine, I'm addicted to this Ajahn, I'm addicted to my opinions. That it doesn't dissolve the addiction to that particular quality, but as an acknowledgement, oh, This is a strong one. So let's leave it there, as I do need to be.
Thank you.
Thinking.
Thank you, Longpo. We shall leave it there and we'll close by just the verses of sharing and aspiration, Longpo.
Now let us chant the verses of sharing and aspiration. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, may my spiritual teachers and guides of great virtue, my mother, my father, and my relatives, the sun and the moon, and all virtuous leaders of the world, may the highest gods and evil forces, celestial beings, guardian spirits of the earth, and the Lord of death, may those who are friendly, indifferent, or hostile, may all beings receive the blessings of my life. May they soon attain the threefold bliss and realize the deathless. Through the goodness that arises from my practice, and through this act of sharing, may all desires and attachments quickly cease, and all harmful states of mind, until I realize Nibbana in every kind of birth. May I have an upright mind, with mindfulness and wisdom, austerity and vigor. May the forces of delusion not take hold, nor weaken my resolve. The Buddha is my excellent refuge. Unsurpassed is the protection of the Dhamma. The solitary Buddha is my noble guide. The Sangha is my supreme support. Through the supreme power of all these, may darkness and delusion be dispelled.
Thank you, Longpo. We shall now close. Shun Sian, please.
Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi Sawakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Nammasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Sāvaka Sangho Sanghang Namami. 3 bows to Longpo together. Bow.
We're very grateful for your time, Longpo, and we wish you a very good rest of the Vassa. May you keep well. Until we meet again, take care.
Take care.